Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Titans Nation, and this is a video for all of my cronies. And I really hope you guys appreciate this one because I am really excited to play this list. So hopefully all of my cronies out there really enjoy what I'm bringing today. And the best way for me to describe what I'm bringing today, well, first I feel like I need to explain where my mind is at right now. And that is, and I will eventually stop talking about it, but the truth of the reality is, did have 2 new babies. Not going to be able to travel right now. Now, mind you, Lane is, and Lane, I have no problem at all prepping him, working with him, running some meta lists. That's what we did the last couple weeks. I was running a lot of my personal belief of heavy hitters into his Death Guard to allow him to get practice for the upcoming team tournament, which I'll let him talk to you about how that all went and how the Death Guard performed. But I won't be traveling for a little bit. You know, maybe October, November, I might get back out there. Because, yeah, I got 2 new babies here, and my wife definitely needs some help. So here I am. But I'm still playing. And this means that with no tournaments on the horizon, and Lane wants to try out the Imperial Agents book, this gives me a chance to play a meme. And I can just run a meme list. And in my previous video that I posted up, where I draw the comment of all lists are crazy until they win a GT. This is my first crazy list. And this is pretty crazy, but hear me out. And that's, I guess, the best way I can say it is, listen, I know what you're going to say, but hear me out. And if you still listen this far and you're going to hear into the rest of the video, awesome. Then I'll get my chance to say what I'm bringing. So I will be playing the Awaken Dynasty. And I'm playing the Awaken Dynasty for pretty much one stratagem. And that is a stratagem that for 1 command point, I can resurrect a character. Now, there are 2 enhancements that I am taking in this list. But it's for the 1 command point to resurrect a character. And why? Why would I value that so high, you may ask? The list I'm bringing today has 0 battle line units, 0 other. It is 19 characters for 21 models. That means I have 19 units in this list. Keep that in mind. Also, 19 units, but there are 19 characters. So this is something that we joked about a lot at the beginning of the edition. Myself and Josh, we were talking about this, and he ran the first all-character hero hammer build, but this is the first all-character hero hammer build I'm running that doesn't involve Catans, because that was actually a thing. You ran a couple little things and then Catans, but not that. 0 Catans here. No Catans. No Catans here. I had to make sure. I mean, one of them has like a piece of a Catan, but it's not a Catan. No keywords, Catan. So this is my chance to have a little fun and try this out. And here's the thing. That sounds silly on paper. I know there's probably a couple people out there going, no, that's not crazy. I've thought about the same thing. But let me show you what I'm bringing and what my thought process is behind them. We'll come back, talk about that a little bit. Yeah, this is what I'm bringing today. Here's my Necrons Awaken Dynasty. All right, everyone, here it is, the Awaken Dynasty. And surprisingly, when I looked at this, only 3 of my models really are not table ready and kind of unpainted. So that's a good thing because I'm still working on the World Eaters. So again, the Awaken Dynasty gives a boost to units that are led by characters. Obviously, none of these units are going to be led by a character. They are a character. But the 1 command point strat is what I'm really looking at. Now, here's the thing. When you go down all the other detachments and you look at the detachments and what they can do for just a character build such as this one, the only other one that looks possible would be Hypercrypt. But Hypercrypt gets run so frequently, I wanted to try the Awaken Dynasty out first. There are a couple things I get out of this. And first and foremost is the 1 command point stratagem to be able to resurrect a character with half its wounds remaining. I can do this at the end of any phase, and because it's a strat, and the character comes back at the beginning of the phase. I can only do it once per character. With some good character management, I could bring a good chunk of this army back over the course of the game, especially since it's one command point. And as we talk about the other stratagems like during the game, there's really not any other stratagems I'd want to use with this army that really make it value. There might be a couple of times where it's like, oh, this could be nice, or oh, this could be good. But for the most part, we're doing this so we can stand characters back up. Then there's also 2 enhancements. We'll talk about those as we get into the units. Let's start talking about the units. First and foremost, he's right in the middle. Let's talk about him, the Silent King. Yep, I am bringing the Silent King to the table. It's been a while. It's been a while since he's been out here. So I do know that in Lane's Imperial Agents, we are going to be getting a visit from Canis Rex. As again, I stated, all units in this army have the character keyword, and the Silent King does in fact have the character keyword, even though he is a vehicle and has a whole bunch of interesting weaponry. For me, his shooting is stronger than his combat for most aspects of it. He is not actually going to be a good run-in for Canis Rex. There's a couple of things he can do as far as the manures can shoot him and hit him pretty hard. But if the rocks aren't there, a lot of his other stuff's really not going to do it. Yeah, there's some 3 damage, but he's tough. As far as other units, though, the Silent King can really, really wreck. And built behind its big hull, 16 wounds, the fact that the rocks can get resurrected now off reanimation protocols. This is a unit that, while I cannot resurrect him with the 1 command point strat, because that's only infantry characters, not vehicles, he can get targeted with the reanimation strat at the end of the phase that allows me to reanimate D3. So I can end up bringing a rock back that was just barely killed, or heal myself to a position where I can bring the rock back during my command phase if we're moving to end a turn. So there is some tech that I can play off of that in this dynasty, off that stratagem, to make him a little more resilient. Otherwise, basic reanimation protocols, and he does have 3 auras that he kicks out there. One that I'm most likely going to be sitting on is going to be the reroll 1s to hit and wound aura in shooting, because as surprising as it may seem, I actually do have a fair bit of shooting in this army. So he shoots himself, and he is a Necron unit that would gain that ability, so it's not too bad for him. He does have some really good guns. So Silent King is character number 1, and also, again, the 2 extra models for this army. That's why I said 19 units with 21 models. These are the 2 extra. Moving over, we have 2 Catacomb Command Barges, which, again, Catacomb Command Barge is a unit with a character keyword. The Catacombs are interesting. So first, they have a 4-up invuln, and they're a vehicle. These guys are pretty tough, and then they also have their own reanimation to heal for a bit. Not infantry, so they can't stand back up, but these guys are interesting because of how a couple of things, weird roles that they play. They're not overly impressive in combat, but they do get a gun, and you can take a Staff of Light. So these guys can shoot in that fashion at multiple different targets and actually put down a decent amount of firepower. The Staff of Light is still a decent combat weapon, and with these guys just over on bulkiness and reanimation protocol, they can get into fights with weaker units and slowly just roll them off an objective. Now, the Resurrection Orb on this is actually pretty interesting and is another key timing piece. Typical Resurrection Orbs on Overlords can only be used on the unit that they're leading. So if you take a Resurrection Orb on an Overlord standing by himself, he cannot resurrect, he can't trigger it on himself. The Resurrection Orbs on the Catacomb Command Barge are worded differently. These ones target a unit at the end of any phase, and that unit gains D6 reanimation, as long as it is an infantry. So these guys can actually target a character who got beat up and is still alive and heal him for a couple of wounds before we go into the fight phase. I think that's pretty interesting. Or heal a unit that got overwatched and got hurt and I want to charge. That's an interesting little mechanic, and it's free with the Catacomb, that I'm definitely interested to try out and see how that works. I think these guys will be hanging out by the King to be able to get his reroll 1 buff and kind of also be a roadblock for things like Canis Rex before they get into him. Moving over into our next bit of actual shooting, there's two more things. One, sort of. We have 3 Plasmancers. So Plasmancers typically give you a 5-up crit and are pretty popular with Immortals and stuff like that. I am not taking any units, so these guys are not leading a unit, so the 5-up crit doesn't matter. What I'm taking them for is the fact that at 18 inches, these guys really can go off. They have a solid gun at 3 shots, high strength. They can strength 6, I believe, AP 2, 3 damage. And then then if I flip those and it's AP 3, 2 damage, I apologize. It's one of those. I'm having a moment right now. But then they all have their ability, the Immortal Lightning, which targets a unit, roll 4 dice. On a 4-up, they take a mortal wound. That's mortal wound damage is very nice. Now we're taking 3 of these guys. So 3 of these guys can hang out near each other, shoot, and do just extra little bit of pickup damage to something. Maybe something that gets hit by the Silent King and doesn't... it's AP 3-2 damage. I just looked it up. Yeah, sorry, AP 3-2 damage. But then they can get... they can just do that little bit of damage to finish off something excuse me, something silly, a unit, a vehicle. And when you have 3 of them, then that becomes a threat to actually taking out some infantry, where you're able to hit them pretty hard and clear a unit that might have been trying to skate around back and get into your some of this backfield units and tie up like the Silent King. They can resurrect for 1 CP. I can heal them. They are kind of fragile. I don't expect that they'll be around very long once they start getting hit. The last kind of mid shooting, and the reason I say mid is because it's actually very powerful. It's just hilarious where it comes from. And he is the hook, line, sinker, the anchor, and is going to be the one unit that Lane will absolutely hate out of this entire army, that he will love the Psychomancers over him. Alumin Zerus. Alumin Zerus usually buffs battle line units, of which we have none. He also has Lone Op as long as he is within 3 inches of a Necron unit. All of my characters are Necron units, so if he's within 3 inches of a character, he is Lone Op. He has a 36-inch range gun. It's 3 damage. It's 36-inch range. It's only like strength 9, but it's 36-inch range. So he can shoot at things and actually do damage and help picking things off and picking things up. Since we have limited shooting, when you combine him with things like the Plasmancers and that, it's... You can actually... I think I have enough to actually pick up some stupid things that I shouldn't be able to. Not a Land Raider, but like some other vehicles that I should not be able to take down. And some tough units too. Now, the one thing that is kind of shooting, I guess I should mention this in here, but their role, and it's the next unit to move to, is the 2 Hexmark Destroyers. 2 single Hexmarks. So Hexmarks have deep strike. Small bases, I mean, most of my army does. Smaller bases, I should say, because it's not a unit. And they have deep strike. These guys are going to be my secondary mission pieces. These are going to be things that are able to score land, score a primary, land, score an objective marker, and they can shoot. And if they get late in the game and can get themselves into a position where they're fighting a softer unit, they can pick it up. And because of their free Overwatch, they can clear some soft objective, getting units off objectives, and then scuttle onto the point. And that's the thing, is they have to get onto the point afterwards. I think that's the biggest downfall with these guys, is that it's like they can do it, but it takes a lot more time. And sometimes you don't have that window. And if your opponent looks at them, they can pop them. These guys have Lone Op naturally, so at least they can't get popped from long range, which is nice. And but mostly, yes, these guys are part of that secondary mission and clear some primaries if need be. But they're the only deep strike unit that I have outside the enhancement, because yes, the Veil's around. We'll get to that. So that's the shooting units in this army, the ones that are more available for shooting. Now we have other units, and I guess everyone does have some sort of shooting option except one. So they have some guns, so we still have a shooting phase. First of all, 3 Overlords. Unfortunately, these guys will be taking the Overlord Blade today, which is only 2 damage, not the 3 damage. But that's because each one of these is coming with a Tachyon arrow. Yes, I'm taking 3 Tachyon arrows. Who takes 3? I haven't seen a single Tachyon arrow in this game. Whatever an Overlord, he has a Res Orb. These 3, their Res Orb's useless. They're taking Tachyon arrows. I hope I get to smack Canis Rex right in his nightly face with these things. With the Silent King nearby, they could stand near him and reroll 1s and they hit on 2s. So we're going to be throwing Tachyon arrows at Canis Rex. And I have range. I have range for days with these things. They're like 72-inch range or something ridiculous. And then they kind of fight. They're really good in combat. Terminator profile with a 2-up, 5 toughness, 4-up invuln. They reduce damage by 1 inherently. And yeah, they smack. They really smack. I've enjoyed them in the past where I've been able to run other where I've run them with Immortals because they hit a lot harder out of there. But even some missions where I've been left down to just the Overlords, I've been actually really impressed with these guys. Another thing is too, the Overlords stratagem reduction is once per battle round, 1 unit from your army with this ability can be targeted with a stratagem for 0 CP. If you have not already done that with the other unit thing. I can reanimate for free on these guys. I can reroll a charge for free on one of these guys. I can do one of these guys each battle round. They can do this ability. So, yeah, that's a free stratagem. That's always nice. Once per battle round. So, yeah, being able to res for free is nice. It saves the CP, and then I can spend it on someone else in the next phase later on if one of them gets shot down. It's a beautiful thing. We have next 3 Scorpack Lords. Here's where one of the enhancements go. Well, the Scorpack Lord, Mr. Thanos himself with the Infinity Gauntlets. Thanos, so I don't get copyrighted. He will have the 4-up Feel No Pain. I just like having the 4-up Feel No Pain on this dude. Honestly, really, it's just they're super tough, and throwing the 4-up Feel No Pain on him, just like the 4-up Feel No Pain on Alumin Zerus. Oh yeah, Alumin Zerus is never dying. Let's cut back over to him real quick because I kind of shaded over this real fast. Alumin Zerus is not going to die. I can spend a command point because he's infantry and stand him back up with half his wounds remaining. He has a 2-up save, a 4-up invuln, with a 4-up Feel No Pain. He is an infantry, so I can heal him with those resurrection orbs. Zerus is not going... a lot of things are going to have to get removed in my army first before Zerus has a chance of dying. And if he does, I'd be very surprised. Because this army is really built in such a way that Zerus should not die. The way to kill Zerus is... there's too many layers to it. Too many layers. Back over to Scorpacks. Scorpacks do impact damage. Scorpacks hit hard in combat. Scorpacks are tough. Scorpack Lords have good defense. Scorpack Lords have a 4-up invuln. And again, they can do impact damage for mortal wounds. With, 19 units. So I have multiple units that I'm able to segment and put the damage onto these things. These Scorpack Lords can pounce forward and finish things off. Now, granted, that puts them in a position where they can get shot down pretty easily. We do have the strats to stay on one back up, and that 4-up Feel No Pain helps another recover. Usually, I do lose the other one. Depending on the situation, I may lose both and only have the 4-up Feel No Pain remaining, but hopefully we're not going to get that crazy into it. Backing these guys up in combat, we also have 2 Locust Destroyers. These are the regular floating Locust Lords. Locust Lords. These are the fly Locust Lords, and they're going to be coming with a Overlord's Blade. And instead of the Resurrection Orb that they cannot use, they will have the Nano Scarab casket, I believe, or at least that's what it was. All in all, a 5-up Feel No Pain. They do still have the 4-up invuln too. So these guys have a 4-up, 5-up to slide up into combat and smack some stuff. If they're fighting a unit that is below its half strength, then they start getting rerolls. So these guys are good for the cleanup. After Scorpack Lords hit and they do a good chunk of damage and they're able to drop the unit below 50, then the Overlord that doesn't have the Locust Overlord that doesn't have as many attacks can at least get the rerolls and finish off the unit, or hopefully finish off the unit, or put it at a point that it's guaranteed to be swept or not really an effect to the rest of the battle. All right, last, because of course, I would have to bring these, not just for lane, because I love them. 2 Psychomancers. And the Psychomancer who's actually the Psychomancer, at least at this moment, I may change my mind, will have the Veil of Darkness. Veil of Darkness does not require it's leading a unit. None of those abilities that I listed, the Overlord ability and the Score Pack impact damage, does not require it to be leading a unit. Neither does the Veil. So the Veil allows me to have a unit to pick up pop and place in a new area later on in the game. That can win me the game. That could be at a point where it's like, I need to get a unit over here for this because there's nothing over here. I might need extra support. I might need a unit that can do actions because I'm just having to fight with all this stuff constantly, like Score Packs or something like that. That's where he's going to come in handy. Not to mention, because of the fact that all of his main ability does not require line of sight, I don't even have to have him out in play. It is once per game, but it is something I can use going into turns 4 and 5 that I wouldn't otherwise have available. So I feel it's very, very strong for this build. All right, that's the list. Okay, so the good news is, because I rambled so much about what the list is going to do, I don't have as much to say here because I talked about all the different dynamics and how certain things work together. With that, that's what we're trying out here. I think that Lane is doing a list that has quite a few characters in it. So I think we might have some fun, and I go with fixed, where I can just do Assassinate and another one. But I am considering doing, Tactical for my secondaries. So I have the one to pitch for a command point if I can't score it. My army can actually do quite well in some of those tactical ones because of the fact that I don't have to do actions repeatedly with things, where if I take the fix, I might be stuck into doing actions. I can't really do engage. I can't really do behind enemy lines. Cleanse would be a good option, but that's where we fall into the doing actions. And I have the units, but I don't really want to be dedicating them in that fashion for 5 turns of the game, or trying to make sure I'm dedicating them for 5 turns of the game. I'd like a couple turns where I don't have to do that. Things like engage on all fronts, secure no man's land. What's the other good ones? Like some of the other ones that do require actions, though, like recover assets and containment, can be done by units that are going to make progression to a later point in the game. Cleanse puts a unit on an objective, but some of my units, I need them to start progressing. And at least they can progress where if it's an objective I'm already on, then it means I'm not progressing with the unit and I'm not doing damage with it, which I think I kind of need to keep the flow going for a lot of stuff in here. Things like behind enemy lines and engage on all fronts I can do, but probably just once. Probably once off of a Hexmark Deep Strike. Or I happen to pick up the Veil and then draw into behind enemy lines, then I can put a guy back there and at least get 3 points for it. It's only one more point. If you get, it's 3 or 4. It's weird. But that's where I'm at with it. And that's going to be the list. All right. I rambled on enough. Hopefully this should be some fun. And yes, I did consider Emotech for this list. I just couldn't fit them in for what I was trying to do. So if this somewhat works, we'll talk about Emotech. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.